From 1337 to 1453, England and France were locked in the 100 Years' War, a conflict over crowns, land and power. Legendary figures like the Black Prince, Henry V, and Joan of Arc emerged. Castles fell, armies clashed, and the longbow changed warfare forever. In the end, France emerged victorious, and England's dream of ruling France was over. But this war forged two nations, shaping their identities for centuries to come. The 100 Years' War was a crazy long time to be at war. There were periods of truce and peace, and even times when the two sides were allies. The treaty that ended the war in 1453 had been negotiated 32 years before, and was more or less a draw. But there were some pretty decisive battles along the way. In 1346, the English won a smashing victory at the Battle of Crécy, defeating a much larger French force. It was the first major battle to feature the longbow, a weapon that would dominate medieval warfare for the next 200 years. Crécy was a turning point in military history, and it helped establish English supremacy in France, at least for a while. Henry V is considered one of the greatest military commanders in English history. He won a stunning victory against the French at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. His army was outnumbered 2-1. But thanks to the longbow, the English won a decisive victory. Agincourt was a high point for the English, and their claim to the French throne was at its strongest during Henry's reign. But the war turned after Henry died in 1422. Control of England passed to Henry's son, the young Henry VI, who was only 9 years old when he inherited the throne. The French began to push back, and in 1429 the tide completely turned with the appearance of Joan of Arc. She led the French to victory in several key battles, including the Battle of Orleans, and she was instrumental in lifting the English siege of the city. Joan was eventually captured by the English, tried for heresy, and burned at the stake in 1431. But her story lived on and became a key part of French national identity. The war dragged on for another 2 decades, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. Finally, in 1453, the English surrendered. They had lost about 80% of their territory in France. The 100 Years' War had a profound impact on both England and France. For France, the war was a struggle to maintain independence against an aggressive English monarchy. The French fought valiantly and with determination, ultimately prevailing in the end. For the English, the war began as a real chance to create a lasting empire in France. But ultimately they were unable to hold on to their hard-won gains. Still, the English had moments of brilliance during the war, thanks to their longbow and their military leaders. Overall, the war was a brutal and costly affair, but it helped shape the national identities of both England and France.